Thank you very much, Joe. I'm glad I talked to George Vogel, and George said he woke up and didn't have anything to do all day. There was no story breaking. But I did think of you guys this morning because I know it came out of the blue, and I hate you got to drag yourself down here in this kind of weather to do something with me because you get tired enough here with the crap I have to deal out from February through September, whatever the case might be. Anybody got any questions? I'd be happy to answer them. Yeah, George.
Marty, when did you come to this decision, and how much, I was talking to Jeff Brantley, how much did your conversations with Vince Scully have to do with you thinking this was the right time?
Well, I don't think that the conversation I had with Vin, 3 years ago, whatever it was, but it's the type of thing that I think it subconsciously begins in your mind that one day, the better part of your career is behind you. And I was really interested in hearing what Vinny had to say about, what his plans were. And I mean, I was stunned when he made the decision that he did because I truly think that he was the best. I mean, any guy in my profession that will not concede that Vin Scully was the greatest baseball broadcaster who ever lived, one, is delusional, or two, he has such an ego that he can't admit that somebody's better than he is. And so I was interested in what he had to say. And he's been gracious with me. Nobody has a greater level of respect than I do about what he was able to accomplish in his career. So I was interested in what he had to say. And he was concerned. As I said earlier today, you can talk to people until you're blue in the face about retiring, guys that have done that. But you have to walk that walk. Whatever they tell you, they can't. That's not advice because I may be as different from you as night is today. I may decide after 3 months I made the biggest mistake in my life. There are other people who walk away. I always think about Johnny Bench. He got tired of getting beat every day because that was a bad club he was associated with after being a part of one of the great teams in the history of baseball. And he woke up one day, I really believe, and I'm tired of losing all the time. He walked away and never missed a beat. I mean, he never looked back, and that's exactly the way I would hope that my decision will be for me.
Marty, you talked about you've always had a special connection with the fans. When did you realize how special that connection was, and how much did that carry you throughout the years?
I tell you what, the first year I was here, and I replaced a guy who will go down as one of the top 10 sports announcers of all time, and Al Michaels, and it was incredible to me because there were very few public criticisms of my work early. I was shocked, but I was with a good team. I was broadcasting a good team in '74, unlike Al, who came in '71 and the team didn't play well. And I think the fans took their frustrations out on him. This is what I was told. Well, the season rolls along, and they played a twilight double. They played a twilight doubleheader against the San Francisco Giants at Riverfront the weekend after the All-Star break. And in the first game, Reds went to the bottom of the ninth, trailing 13-9. And they rallied in the bottom of the ninth, and with 2 out, Perez, I forget who was on first base, but Bench hit a ground ball to first baseman Dave Kingman. And it was a routine ground ball. It was a dead out. And he fielded it, and Randy Moffett was pitching for the Giants, and he never left the mound. And so that extended the ninth. And the Reds were 2 runs down, and Tony Perez hit a 3-run home run to straightaway center field to win the game 14-13. And I lost my mind. And I was told later that people were calling and asking to hear the replay of the game-winning home run all night long on our flagship station, WLW Radio. And I think at that point I realized that you know what, maybe they like my work a little bit.
Marty, I believe I've heard you say in the past that when you did walk away, you just walk away at the end of the season and didn't want a farewell tour and all that. You're going to get that big time this year. What figured into that decision, and how emotional was that going to be for you?
What changed my mind was Phil Castellini yelling at me from across the table. Not really. He and I talked about it, and Phil's sitting here, and he knows that's what I told him. I I want to do the last game, and then I want the club to announce the next morning that I'm done. And in his own unique way, he explained to me that it wasn't fair to the fans, it wasn't fair to the club. And you know, I'll use the line that Vinny used, and you'll hear it I'm honored, but I'm also very uncomfortable about it, because I don't feel like I needed that in order to make me realize that, and I wouldn't be here 46 years if the fans didn't like my work. I mean, the ownership could love my work, but if the people constantly criticize my manner in which I broadcast baseball, then I wouldn't be here. There'd have been somebody else there. So I'm looking toward the season with great trepidation, but affectionately so.
How tough?
Huh? It'll be very tough. Today's been tough. But, you know, people get tired of hearing me say this. I know Rob's heard me say it a million times. But of all the things that I learned from Joe Nuxhall in 31 years, the one thing I learned was there's nothing wrong with crying. And it's masculine to cry. I used to say, oh, you got to be kidding me. That guy's a wuss. He's crying. And now I used to kid Joe. I said, you used to cry with the sun coming up and door openings and all that kind of stuff. But over the course of years, I realized, I mean, I'll never forget when they had Johnny Bench night. And Bench hit a home run in that game. The Reds lost 5-2, I think the score was. I forget the name, young man, last name of Madden, pitched the game for the Astros, but Bench hit a home run, who had the greatest flair for the dramatic of any Reds player I've ever been around. If something dramatic was going to happen, Bench was going to do it more often than not. And Joe, God bless him, had the call. There's a line drive home run to left, and he broke down and started crying on the air. I said, you got to be kidding me. But I've learned, and I think anybody's been around all day, no, I've done it 2 or 3 times already. And that's going to be tough, but all of it will come from the heart, because I've had a hell of a run here, and you guys have been great with me. I've developed tremendous friendships with people in the media. And so, you know, I don't think the full impact of this thing will happen until maybe 1 year from now, when everybody's packing up and getting ready to go to Arizona, because nobody loves spring training more than I did.
Marty, do you have any plans for retirement, maybe things you're looking forward to once you do step away?
No, I was, you know, because I got a full season ahead, but there are things I want to do and places I want to go. And Amanda and I, as I said earlier today, we went to Europe for 2 weeks in October, and that was one of the most unforgettable trips. And I really went over there more as a favor to her than I did because I was looking forward to it. And then when I got over there, I mean, I'd go to Italy tomorrow. I'd go back and we spent most of our time in Italy, and we were in Paris to start with and in Paris at the end. And there are other countries I want to go to in Europe. I'm committed to it now. But other than that, you know, I'm still going to be associated with the ball club, and I appreciate their efforts in making that happen. Things that I do off the air of broadcasting Reds baseball is not going to go away. My pet project, and it always has been for a guy who is absolutely brutal when it comes to playing golf, is a golf event in my name, and so that's going to be around, and I'm looking forward to more of that in the years to come. But I've got to find something to do. I may become a greeter, you know, something like that, or go to a golf course and be a starter, something like that. You know, I don't know, but I got to find. I can't sit around on my butt all day and do nothing. That doesn't work.
Okay, Marty.
Yes, Phil.
Partly to defend myself and partly to ask a question.
You have no defense because I was accurate.
There was no yelling. Let the record show, not during that conversation. But we talked a lot about, and bless you for doing this the way you are. We really, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you.
I know you
for doing it this way, because it is going to be special. And one of the things we talked about was to do it this way, you can embrace every ballpark you'll go to this whole year, many of which will be for the last time in that capacity. Yeah. And I know it wasn't about being honored at those places, although I told you that guys that have my job, that's part of what we do.
Right.
So thank you for that. But what we talked about is being able to embrace those people that you mentioned. It's all about the people, not just here, but at every park. So maybe a little bit about which park or which people that you look forward to being able to thank and say goodbye to, and really, embrace and kind of bask in the glow of the nostalgia of that tour for you.
Well, on a lighter note, I know the Cubs and Cardinal fans, they'll take their best shot at me when I go in there for the last time. I don't know that I have any park. I love Dodger Stadium. I think guys that have worked with me and traveled with me over the years know the great affection I have for that ballpark. I'm not a big fan of the city of Los Angeles and never have been, but I really truly love that ballpark. And maybe Vin has something to do with that. I don't know. I sound like a 16-year-old kid talking about Vin Scully, but that's how much respect I have for the guy. And other people have said, well, why don't you do what Vin did? And Vin has not traveled for about 25 years maybe. He used to say that this was his favorite city. Of all the cities that he traveled to, he loved to come to Cincinnati. But he reached a point in his career, and God knows he just turned 90 years old, I think, that he stopped traveling. And I have had people say, why don't you do that? I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to go from doing baseball on a full-time basis pretty much to not doing any at all. It's going to be a very emotional situation going into ballparks for the last time. I don't know that one stands out more than the other, although, like I said, I have a special place in my heart for Dodger Stadium, and I love Wrigley Field, and Fenway Park is, Fenway Park. So I don't know. I look forward to the travels, and I told Amanda after I was on the radio earlier, after the announcement here, let's just start playing baseball now, and I'll be fine.
Marty, obviously you've been associated with Joe.
Yep.
Marty and Joe. It's kind of a Cincinnati phrase that everybody talks about. Can you talk about a little bit about that relationship and what it meant to you?
John, it was special. We were together 31 years, and I've told people of all the good things that have happened for me as a result of this job. The fact that he and I were together for 31 years equals the longest that any broadcast duo has done Major League Baseball. And again, it's Vin Scully and Jerry Doggett. They did 31 years. Joe and I did 31 years. Nobody has ever done it longer, and I don't think there will be a pair in the game that'll do it that come close to doing it that long again. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just learned an awful lot from him about the game. I learned a lot about how to carry yourself as being, in his case, one of the most beloved people who have ever come out of this city or this area. And we were so connected that I tell this story all the time, that people would send cards and letters to us before the advent of social media and Twitter and the whole 9 yards. And they would address it, Marty and Joe, Cincinnati, Ohio. And they'd get that down at the main post office downtown, and they'd send it right to the ballpark. And the first time I heard that from a guy that worked down there, I was stunned. I said, you got to be kidding. He said, where else are we going to send it? There was a return address. Well, we know who it was going to, so we just sent it down to the ballpark. And we were never so emotional with each other that we would tell each other how much we thought of one another. And the last time that I was with him was at Kenwood Country Club, and he was not well. A couple of guys had won the right to play golf with us, and we go out on a early November afternoon, and it was beautiful. It was 57 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. And he was not strong enough to play 18 holes, and he'd ride around the cart, and every 2 or 3 holes he'd hit a golf ball. But he dazzled those guys with stories about the game and that type of thing. And we're sitting on the 14th tee box at Kenwood, and he said to me, we really had a good time together, didn't we? And it was so out of character for him. And all I could do was say, yeah, we really did. And then 4 days later, he died. I really believe, and I'll believe till I die, that he had a premonition that day that it was going to be the last time that we ever saw one another. He was special. I was thrilled just to call him my friend. Question?
Hey, Marty. Did you make a list of pros and cons, and what were the hardest ones to cross off and say, okay, this puts it over?
You mean as far as retirement's concerned?
Yes.
I did not. I'm not that analytic. I'm not that bright to do that. That would be hard to do. I don't know that if I'd have put pros and cons down, I'd probably be talking about signing a 10-year contract. Nobody enjoys broadcasting baseball more than I do. I truly love the games. I loved the game itself better 20 years ago because I think baseball has put in too many rules. Knee-jerk reaction to Buster Posey getting torn up and Chase Utley blowing up somebody's leg at second base on a play in the postseason. I enjoyed the warnings to pitchers. Pitchers took care of themselves back in the old days. They would take care of their business. But the fact of the matter is that from a play-by-play broadcaster standpoint, there's no game more fun to broadcast than baseball is. If there's a true art form in my business, I mean, doing basketball is falling out of bed. I've done a lot of college basketball and pro basketball. I did football. If you can't ad-lib reasonably intelligently, you can't broadcast baseball. I think it's just, I would recommend it highly to any young guy that wants to get into this business, broadcast baseball. Don't worry about the rest of it. But had I sat down and done a pros and cons, I'd still be doing it.
One quick follow-up. It's a day for memories. Go back 46 years. You're a kid who just got his first job in Major League Baseball, and you're on Aaron's home run chase. Can you go back to that night and that?
Well, I was scared to death. I mean, I'm doing after they're blowing it all up in the second spring training game I did at Al Lopez Field in Tampa when I said Al Michaels Field. And we had a writer who's now, Bob Herzl, sports editor of the Morgantown, West Virginia. Bob was a beat writer, and he couldn't wait to call Al because he and Al were really good buddies. He was covering the Reds at the time for the Cincinnati Enquirer, and Al got a big charge out of it, and I was mortified. And then comes the opening game of the season and all the controversy that evolved around whether or not Henry was going to play. And the commissioner finally said he's going to play in the opening game, and then he's going to play in the last game of the series. He skipped the second game. Of course, he tied the record, and then it really started. Well, we'd like to hold him out until we get home to face the Dodgers, and the commissioner said, no, he's got to play one more time. And then he goes home on, I don't know, Friday night or whatever it was, and he hit the record-breaking home run off of Al Downing. I was overwhelmed. I'd never been in a ballpark with 55,000 people. And then he hits a home run in the first inning. I mean, I said the same. Nuxall said, what the hell do you do for an encore? I said, I don't know. I said, it's a pretty good way to start. And so it was one of the big thrills of my life because I never expected to be broadcasting big league baseball anyway. I was doing pro basketball in the old American Basketball Association. I loved it. Not a big fan of the NBA anymore, watching the postseason, but I loved the game. And this thing fell into my lap, and fortunately I got the job, and here we are 45 going on 46 years later talking about it still. Any more questions?
Hey, Marty. With all the games and all the years, have you been able to break down maybe a top 5, top 10 calls of all time for yourself?
Well, the obvious ones are Pete's record-breaking hit and Tom Browning's perfect game and Tom Seaver's only no-hitter. But, my favorite calls are calls that nobody would ever think about. The home run that Jay Bruce hit here in the bottom of the ninth off Tim Burdick against Houston, was it, Rob, 2010, that put him into the postseason? Ken Griffey Jr.'s 500th home run. Because there was a lot of controversy about that, internal controversy. He came to me when he was sitting at 497 and said, I want you to do the call. I said, well, if I'm on the radio, I will. He said, no, you don't understand. I want you to have every at-bat until I break the record. He said, you've known me since I was this high. I said, let me explain to you how this works. I don't do the third, fourth, and seventh. If you hit the home run in the other 6 innings, then he said, no, that's not going to work. I said, you don't understand. We had a meeting, And finally, the understanding was the only way I would agree to do that is if the club put out a release, Rob remembers it, saying that I would have each of his at-bats, but made it perfectly clear it was not my idea. And fortunately, he hit number 500 in an inning in which I did. And then 2 or 3 years later, 4 years, what it is, he came up to me one day when he was at 597 and said, well, I guess we're going to do this again, are we? And I didn't pick up on it. I said, what are you talking about? He said 600. I said, are we going to do this again? He said, yes, we are. And so, but those were the 500th and the Bruce home run. I would say are two of my favorites. Even more so, and I know a lot of guys that when a momentous event is going to occur, they plan on what they're going to say. Well, I'm not that good. I can't do that because it sounds contrived. And I know some guys that have done that because they come up with something cute that people are going to remember for years to come. I can't do that, and I never planned anything. I just hope that what comes out conveyed to the people listening what was going on in the ballpark. When Junior hit number 500 off Matt Morris in St. Louis, his dad was there. It was Father's Day. It was really cool. And so I've been lucky because the thing you worry about is stumbling over your words and sounding like an idiot. And I've been lucky because that's not happened. And so I've been blessed in having big events in the history of this franchise. And I'm very thankful for that. Is that it? Well, you guys and ladies have been very, very important to me. The guys, Bobby and Mark and John, and that travel with the club, and all you guys and ladies that work in television, you've been good to me, and you've been fair to me, and I can't ask for anything more than that. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you guys during the season. Thank you very much.